Hey everyone. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a true crime story. Gently, you settle into the hush of your room, while the screen's glow paints your hands with a cool, pale light. Outside, a stray car passes, its tires whispering on damp asphalt, and you feel that small vacuum of quiet return like a space waiting to be filled with a mystery. This one isn't loud. It's a faded photograph you hold close to your face, the details sharpening as your eyes adjust. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I'm doing here. And hey, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing the map of our little night crew light up. Now, turn off the lights, turn on a fan for some gentle noise, and let's begin tonight's journey together. You walk the main street at closing time. Shoes brushing, puddle edges that catch the neon sign of Murphy's Diner, pinks and blues quivering. You can smell rain lifting the chalky scent of old brick, paint flaking where the bakery once kept the door propped open with a sack of flour. You pause where flyers still cling under layers of clear tape faces you don't know, dates you weren't here for, promises of answers that never arrived. The town, as you pass through it, breathes like a sleeping dog, slow and twitchy. You're heading toward the courthouse steps, because this is where the story begins again, where an arrest no one expected pulled the pin out of 10 quiet years. You remember the case from podcasts and stray forum threads. A summer disappearance after a thunderstorm. A missing graduate student with a backpack stitched with little crescent moons. They said she left the library just before closing, waved to the security guard, and vanished into the spool of rain. You picture it. You leaving a pool of light for a street that hisses with runoff, hearing your own footfalls, hearing not much else. All the ordinary rituals, phone buzzing, bus brakes sighing, a neighbor tugging their garbage can made the world feel crowded with witnesses. But somehow, the night found a seam, and the seam gave. You move like you did then. Second person, present tense, a body between lamplight and the scent of wet pine. Your body bears that low-grade hum of towns at midnight, enough electricity to make the hairs on your forearms lift. In your pocket, you keep a note you copied from the archives. No forced entry. It reads, "No signs of struggle." It's absurdly small, this official sentence, like putting a label on fog. Somewhere deep in your mind, you hold another fact, less slippery. The first 911 call system in the United States launched in 1968 in Haleyville, Alabama. You think about how a town decided there should be 3 numbers for when things turned sharp, and how that simple design didn't stop nights like this one. It just gave them an address. You turn the corner by the post office, where the wet flag folds itself and unfolds again, and you catch the flicker of a vending machine inside a dark lobby, a pale aquarium glow. People loved to tell one odd detail about this case. The librarian's donation jar, the one with a handwritten label reading, "Spiral Stair Repair," had exactly 47 marbles in it found under the counter after the rain, as if someone upended the jar, counted, then placed them back. 47 marbles. Not 46. Not 48. You roll this in your palm. A small glass universe clicking against your lifeline. It is useless and irresistible, like a dream you retell even when it doesn't help. The week after the disappearance, searches swept the creek and the scrub, volunteers making tidy lines with reflective vests. But the creek's voice never changed. The police interviewed classmates, professors, and the barista, who remembered a to-go cup with a doodled moon because she always drew them. The TV news set up on the courthouse lawn, a boom mic bobbing like a fishing pole in the breeze. The case went cold, not frozen, just cooled, like soup left on a back burner. Years moved. The bakery closed. The mural faded. The flyers sank under new tape. In threads and late-night calls, people floated their pet theories. You hear them again now, like AM radio through the rain. The lone stranger, the jealous friend, and the professor with office hours that ran too late. The strange lacework of memory and rumor puts you at the diner window tonight, watching your reflection float over laminated menus. The arrest that shocked everyone, yes, We'll get there, but you walk the long way, because that's how a small town opens. You stir your coffee, listen to the spoon ping like a bell, and think about how academics still really argue over whether memory retrieved under stress helps or harms justice. Some criminologists say that revisiting a scene years later opens new doors. Others say your brain fills gaps with stories it prefers. You breathe. You won't fill gaps tonight. You will touch them, name them, and let them be gaps. At the library steps, the concrete holds the after-image of summer sandals, though the night is cool now. You see the notice board. Book club choices, a piano teacher with tear-off tabs, and a faded campus map. On the far edge, a thumbtack rusted to a bruised halo. You read the entry log like a liturgy. Timestamps, initials, and a shorthand chorus. The security guard who waved goodnight collected old train schedules as a hobby, another odd detail that went nowhere but stayed sticky. He kept them in a shoebox, sorted by city, the crisp paper crinkling like dry leaves. He remembered nothing but the wave and the way the rain thickened. He died last year, his heart quietly interrupted between breakfast and a nap, and with him, perhaps, went one small angle of the night. The file says the last camera caught her silhouette passing the municipal bus stop at 9:42 p.m. Umbrella closed, backpack high on both shoulders. You test your own shoulders and feel the muscle tighten. Cold cases mark the body in tiny ways. You raise your eyebrows more often, like widening the window, and you walk a little slower, like giving the world space to remember you. You are not the detective, no badge, no chain of custody, but you take on the ritual of noticing, which is kin to prayer. You notice the brickwork where mortar smears like frosting, and you notice the flicked cigarette in a gutter, a tiny ember finally done. You notice how, even now, after the arrest, the town resists the idea that the story could belong to someone they know. The arrest. You sip air. A week ago, the sheriff's SUV rolled up at 6 a.m., and breakfast plates froze. A neighbor filmed from a bay window with their phone peeking over a plant. The name they said familiar as a street sign, not a drifter, not a rumor from far away. You picture your own face in a mirror at the thought, the way blood leaves your cheeks for a breath. People swear an arrest brings relief. Sometimes it brings a new weight. You now must carry the shape of a person you nodded to in the cereal aisle. You must carry the gap between hello and what they might have done. You hear that fan in your room, the gentle white hiss, and let it smooth the edges. You cross to the creek's guardrail, palms damp on cool metal, the water moving like a dark ribbon being pulled by an invisible hand. 10 years is a long time to keep a ribbon taut. The lab says a new test on old evidence opened the door. They don't say how that feels in the chest, like hearing a key turn in the place you thought was locked forever. You close your eyes and press your forearms into the rail. Rain kisses the ends of your hair. Somewhere, a back door thumps shut. Somewhere, a dog decides the night is fine and curls back to sleep. You remember another concrete fact, simple and unmysterious. Fluorescent lights hum at around 120 hertz in the United States. That hum used to fill the library after hours. You wonder if she noticed it too, as a string under every page she turned. You recall a professor's lecture on chance and pattern how the mind is a pareidolia engine, seeing faces in clouds and stories in random. There's a debate, still live, still heated, about whether communities heal faster with a clean narrative or with an honest void. You lean into the latter, because the truth of nights like this is often a handful of sharp pebbles, not a polished stone. In the diner reflection you left behind, your eyes looked a little older. Not sadder, not wiser, just more convinced that noticing is work. At the edge of town, where the silos stand like patient sentries, you pass the old feed store. Its mailbox carries a line of frost you taste in the air. A single porch light beams above the door. The suspect don't say his name yet, once stacked hay there in summers, wrists taped to stop the twine from biting. Your hand imagines the grit. People will say they always knew, or that they couldn't have known at all. Both are shields. The real thing that scares you is how ordinary it felt. The mornings of sweeping sawdust, the afternoons of dragging pallets. You walk past, and the gravel makes a noise, like a fistful of dice rolled across a table. By the courthouse, a custodial cart squeaks, a sound of wheels that haven't been oiled because something else always takes the budget first. The blue light above the entrance throws a mild halo on the steps. You sit, breathe, and set your phone face down. It vibrates anyway, group chat, links, someone's hot take. You let it be a stone. Your breath fogs, then clears. 10 years, and then a knock at dawn. A community tries to reconcile two truths that do not sit well in the same chair. That's the shock. Not only that an arrest was made, but that it was made in a body you lined up behind at the post office when the stamp machine jammed. You remember his laugh, then brief, embarrassed, gentle, and find yourself angry at how memory protects it, tucking it into the soft folder where you keep kindnesses. You get up and walk toward the jail, not to stare, not to gawk, but to pass by like the river passes under the bridge. The rain thins to needles. Your sneakers squeak. You carry with you the marbles, the train schedules, the fluorescent hum, and the invented moons on a backpack. You carry with you the stubborn fact of numbers you call when nights fracture. You carry with you the argument you can't resolve. That memory is both witness and playwright. Tonight, you decide to let each role speak without cross-examining the other. You will sleep soon, and in that sleep the town will keep breathing, the way towns do when they have learned to do so around a hollow. You arrive back at your door, key, cool, in your grip. Inside, your fan settles into a steady hush. The screen glow softens. You feel your shoulders ease a fraction, as if the story, at least for now, allows you to set it on the table beside your keys. Somewhere, a clock marks the hour. The arrest is real. The shock is real. The not knowing remains, like the glow from a vending machine in a lobby with no one there, humming to itself, bright for no one. Waiting, you sit. You watch the window turn to a smooth, dark mirror, and you let the night hold the rest for a while. Morning slips in like a soft eraser, and you find yourself outside the county building with a paper cup warming your hands, breath lifting in small ghosts. The town is already awake in a jittery way, school buses yawning at corners, the cafe door chattering with a bell that doesn't quite ring true, reporters tunneling cables through puddles. You're here not to gawk, but to witness the way a story puts on daytime clothes. You stand with the others, neighbors, a retired teacher, a dog that shivers in a raincoat, each of you keeping a respectful distance, each of you pretending not to recognize one another beyond nods. There's a peculiar comfort in the choreography. The courthouse steps, the bulkhead of gray clouds, and the cardboard sign taped to a music stand reading "Arraignment, enter side door." You trace the letters with your eyes, as if your attention could smooth their edges. You enter, and the hallway smells like lemons and dust. Your sneakers whisper on waxed linoleum, and you join a line that snakes past bulletin boards crowded with lost keys, city council minutes, and a flyer for a community CPR class scheduled in a room that always feels too cold. You tap your pocket for the 100th time. Your phone is there, dark, with the camera covered with a smudge of thumb oil. Your choice not to record. The benches creak under the small community orchestra of shifting weight, zippers, and coughs. Across from you, a man in a green jacket folds a newspaper with care. He's turned to a page about national weather patterns. A bright map of arrows and swirls detached from your little county's private storm. When the doors open, you filter in and take a seat near the aisle. Fluorescents hum, the same pitch you learned to name last night, that 120 hertz thread. It's almost comfort now, like hearing the bass line of a song you didn't know you missed. They bring him in, the familiar, not stranger, and the room flexes in a way you cannot see, but can feel, as if the air has been pulled like taffy. You have to remind your shoulders to drop. He looks smaller, in county orange. Not because of the fabric, but because of the gaze of 100 people who once looked at him and saw grocery lists and weather, and now see the outline of a different thing laid over the first like tracing paper. No one expects a confession. No one expects an answer that walks itself to the microphone and explains. You expect only procedural language, counts and dates, counsel and bail, and you get it in a steady stream. Still, there's a flash when the prosecutor mentions what opened the old door. A laboratory test that couldn't be run a decade ago, run now on evidence that waited in a chilled drawer like a story in suspended animation. You picture the drawer metal, labeled in a tidy hand, and the envelope within, paper fibers holding their breath all these years. It's hard to square the softness of envelopes with the hardness of consequences. You drift, not out of disrespect, but because the mind needs to move to see clearly. You remember a crisp fact that helps anchor you in the swirl. In 1908, the FBI was founded first as a small band of special agents, and across the century, its tools grew teeth. Fingerprint cards, then mainframes, then DNA profiles. Knowing this doesn't make you feel safer, it just makes you feel oriented, like how a map doesn't shrink a forest, but lets you frame yourself within it. Technology stones the path, but it does not speak. People still have to listen. Outside after the hearing, the rain has become a hush, rather than a conversation. You make your way to the library, because that's where your hands want to be, near shelves that smell like wheat and glue, near the attendant soft chaos of returned books clattering into the slot. Inside, the circulation desk lamp throws a warm circle, and the new librarian, a person with a silver lightning bolt pin on their cardigan, nods hello. You nod back and ask for the local history room, and they point down a short hallway where the carpet changes color like the transition between scenes. You sit, the chair squeaks and sighs, and pull out a microfilm reel because today you want to do something slow. There's a comfort in the tiny crank, the way the world arrives a m at a time. In the column Inches of Summer 10 years ago, you read the small announcements, church bake sale totals, a congratulation to a girl who placed third at state in the triple jump, and a notice about an estate auction featuring assorted tools and a butter churn. You find a photo of the missing student, the crescent moon she stitched on her backpack, bright even in grayscale. You feel the old ache of a picture that doesn't know the future we do. On another page, a sidelong oddity. There's a classified ad. Lost one, left-handed glove, red, with NR, embroidered. Not important, but meaningful to me. The date is 3 days after she disappeared. You let the letters settle in your chest. The glove could be nothing, a coincidence tossed like a leaf into the stream. Or it could be one of those edges you leave your finger on because the paper is already thin. Behind you, a teenager sneezes and whispers, "Sorry," to no one. The printer coughs. Far away, a vacuum cleaner noses a baseboard. You line up an article and print it, hearing that plastic rattle that says the paper tray has known many small frustrations. You collect the sheet and slide it into your folder with care, as if paper can bruise. Across the table, a case file copy one of those public records you requested lies open. You read the notations, the names of friends, the routes searched, and the inventory of her backpack pens. A paperback with a daisy on the cover, and a folded receipt for a bus pass renewal. The receipt's timestamp is 9:21 p.m. The last camera had her at 9:42. Your brain wants to smooth the timeline into a story. Your better angel tells you to let the gaps breathe. Let the minutes be minutes, not morals. Outside, the town's gossip organ hums with new chords. You walk to the diner for lunch, where the waitress, with forearms like braided rope, calls everyone honey. She sets down a grilled cheese that tastes like the idea of childhood instead of the reality of it, and you take comfort in the butter glossing the crust. Two men in caps discuss the price of diesel and say nothing about the courthouse. A college kid at the counter edits a document on a laptop riddled with stickers, tiny planets, a sticker that reads, "Ask me about plants," and one that says, "Data is a story told with numbers." You smile in your sleeve and think about the arguments that have already begun. In one camp, forensic genealogy is a marvel, a bridge between lost knights and living relatives, a map with more roads. In another, it's an ethical bramble, privacy traded for closure, a world where your cousin's hobby kit invites the state into your story. You place yourself, not in the middle exactly, but in a space where questions get to live longer than PR cycles. You understand the relief of an answer. You also understand a shiver that doesn't leave even when the answer arrives with a bow. As you pay, the waitress leans in and says, in the way of towns, "I taught him Sunday school once." She doesn't say his name. She doesn't have to. "He always colored the ocean purple," she adds, and then straightens a napkin dispenser like it needs to be corrected. You carry that purple ocean out with you. Another odd detail that doesn't clear anything, but does change the water's color in your mind. Afternoon stretches, a cat taking up a full couch. You cross to the creek again and follow the footpath toward the municipal bus stop where the last camera caught her silhouette. The shelter is new, with clean plexiglass that reflects you like a faint afterimage. You sit on the bench and listen to the hum of the electrical box nearby, a square metal heart working without an audience. The timetable is printed crisp departure times in neat lines, and someone has stuck a sticker in the corner. A tiny astronaut floating over a house with 3 windows. You touch it with the tip of your finger, a small acknowledgement that someone else moved through here with whimsy. The bus heaves into view, sighs, kneels, and goes again, and the driver lifts 2 fingers off the wheel in a tiny salute. You walk the route she might have walked, not to inhabit her steps. No one can do that, but to keep the path from becoming a rumor. You narrate to yourself as you go, the hardware store sign a little cockeyed, the peeling mural of a fox chasing a swirl of starlings, and the pair of shoes on a power line that probably mean nothing. Just a story people like to tell about stories. The air smells like wet pennies. Your phone buzzes with a news alert, and you read that the arraignment was routine, that the defense asked for more time, and that the next hearing will be in 3 weeks. 3 weeks feels both like a sneeze and a century, time stretching strangely when watched. You pass the feed store where he worked summers and pause at the back fence, the chain links etched with a filigree of rust. On the ground under the overhang, a single wooden pallet leans against the wall. It's marked with a faded stamp you've never noticed before, a tiny crown, and the number 17. You file it away, not because it's significant, but because your brain has become a cabinet for these things. You hear, above the soft rain, the distant bell of the church downtown mark the hour. Bells are facts, you think. Facts shaped like sound. Another historical stone drifts into your palm. The Miranda ruling in 1966 required police to warn suspects of their rights, a ritual now so familiar it feels like the weather in crime dramas. Again, the fact does not soften the day. It simply sets a line on the map. When you reach the edge of town, where asphalt thins to gravel and the sky feels closer, you turn back. On the way, you stop at the small memorial under the sycamore near the library. A laminated photo, now fogged at the edges, a ribbon gone pale, a jar with a few coins, a foreign bill folded small. And this you didn't know. A tiny shell with a crescent chipped into it as if someone used a nail. You hold the shell a moment, feel its chalky refusal to warm in your hand, and set it back. As you stand, the librarian with the lightning bolt pin steps out with a sweater pulled tight and says softly, "People still ask about the stair repair." You almost laugh. A small bubble rising in a pond. The marbles? 47. The jar? Still a myth that won't sit down. "We don't even have a spiral stair," they add, and you both smile at the town's talent for storytelling. Twilight arrives on bare feet. You drift to the high school gym because rumors said there'd be a candlelight gathering. And when you arrive, there are indeed candles, but also a folding table with hot cocoa in 2 huge silver urns, and a lineup of paper plates with rows of cookies that crackle under crisscrossed forks. The gym smells like varnish and sugar, Parents shepherd kids into bleachers, teenagers cluster in quiet, and up front, the principal speaks with a voice that keeps gentleness and caution in the same sentence. You stand with your back to the wall, candle warm against your knuckles, and listen as people share the small testimonies that are the bones of a life. She always returned her books early. She once gave me her umbrella and walked in the rain. He helped my mom carry groceries when her ankle was bad. A sociology professor steps up and talks for a moment about what communities do when shocks alter the furniture of their minds. They mention Durkheim, collective effervescence, and the way ritual binds us. They also mention the danger of scapegoating, of over-smoothing, of making a myth that eats the person it was supposed to honor. There's an ongoing argument, they say, in their field. Does telling a tight narrative help us heal, or does it fence off the parts of grief that refuse to be landscaped? The candles agree, only to flicker. You feel both sides, like two palms pressed together, warmth moving through. When the gathering loosens, you help stack chairs because it's a thing hands know how to do. A boy in a hoodie thanks you as if you did something extraordinary. Outside, the air pins your hair lightly to your forehead, and you don't mind. A moth keeps choosing the same street lamp. Somewhere, a scooter shrieks and then calms. You begin to walk home the long way, because long ways are also rituals, and rituals hold us up. You find yourself back at the courthouse steps without intending to. The blue entrance light, making a shallow lake of color that deepens toward the door. The janitor, you've seen him 100 times, always in work boots, dusted with the day rolls a cart inside. He pauses, and you call softly, "Good night," and he nods, as if you've exchanged something of value. On the bulletin board, someone has pinned a new flyer, a town hall next week, to answer questions about evidence, about process, and about how old cases become new again. You know there won't be answers in the thick sense, only process. But the process is, just now, a kind of balm. On the way home, you stop by your mailbox and remove a bundle held with a rubber band that gives up easily. Among circulars and a letter from a dentist who insists it's been a year when you know it hasn't, there's a postcard from a friend who moved away. A photo of a lighthouse at dusk, the light a white cone over dark water. On the back, in her looping hand, "We still go to the beach even when it's cold." Something about showing up anyway. You put it in your pocket, like a smooth stone. Inside, you draw the blinds and sit on the floor beside the fan, which hums like a small airplane in the distance. You open your folder and take out the printed article, the bus receipt copy, and the notes you scribbled with arrows that try to be wise. You lay them out, and then, just as deliberately, you stack them again and slide the rubber band back on. There's a point where attention becomes a pickaxe, and you need your hands tomorrow. You need sleep to be a lake you can step into without stirring up what rests on the bottom. Before you put your phone face down, you read a final, terse update. The sheriff's office confirms no further details released tonight. The defense issues a short statement about presumption of innocence. The family thanks the community for their support. The comments scramble below like minnows, quick and certain. You don't wade in. You place the phone dark side up and breathe in for 4 and out for 6, like a held note. The room tastes like rain drifted through the screen. And then there it is, you remember one more small, strange thing from the archive. A margin note in that paperback with the daisy on the cover, written in mechanical pencil, faint as a whisper. On page 73, next to a paragraph about the moon, the reader wrote, "It isn't a phase, it's a path. You close your eyes and hold that line carefully, like a glass bead. You do not know what it meant to the person who wrote it. You only know it refuses to leave." The fan goes on. You let your thoughts kneel beside the bed rather than climb into it with you. You understand that tomorrow, and the day after, and 3 weeks from now, the town will keep bargaining with the ordinary garbage day, school runs, car washes, cinnamon rolls, and also with the extraordinary, you will show up anyway. You will walk the path the bus took, sit under the sycamore, pass the feed store, read the bulletin board, buy a loaf of bread, and return a library book before it's due. You will hold in one hand the relief of a step, and in the other, the ache of the road that keeps going. You will be, like the moth, perhaps a little foolish with your lamp. You will let yourself be that way, just enough to keep watching. Tonight, you accept that the arrest is both bridge and shadow. It's a hinge, a sound you hear even after the door settles. You lie back and stare at the ceiling's plain face until your eyes adjust and the paint becomes a landscape, mountains, a river. A small town in a valley with a courthouse whose blue light glows like a square moon. You let the light be light. You let the argument be an argument. You let the facts be stones in your pocket, unthrown, weight and reminder both. And you let your breath, steady now, stitch the hours together until morning chooses you again. The night grows quieter now, the kind of quiet that doesn't ask for anything back. You sit by the open window, the curtain breathing against your arm, like something alive but calm. Streetlights pulse across the cracked pavement, a rhythm older than the story itself. The town feels smaller tonight, not from sadness, but from recognition. Like a room after everyone has left, where the air still hums with conversation. You can still hear the courthouse bell faintly, an echo looping through the wet air. The sound doesn't accuse, doesn't absolve, it just continues, and somehow that's enough. You breathe out slowly and feel your ribs rise and fall like a tide. The things you've carried through this story, the marbles, the jar, the purple ocean, the paperback note, they drift apart now, lighter, smaller, just pieces of a puzzle you're no longer trying to force. Outside, a single car door closes, the engine turning over, fading down the street. You picture the driver, someone heading home, radio low, headlights stretching a brief tunnel through mist. Life doesn't stop for truth. It moves around it, tenderly, like a hand avoiding a bruise. The fan turns its constant circle, a lullaby of air and patience. You listen to its repetition and feel the day slide off you, one breath at a time. The walls lose their edges. The ceiling fades into a watercolor of shadow and light. Your heartbeat finds a softer rhythm, matching the distant hum of the night. In this space, you no longer need to name what's right or wrong, solved or unsolved. You only need to rest inside the pause. That moment before dawn where everything, even sorrow, seems to hold its breath. The truth will wait. The questions can stay unanswered for a while. The creek will keep flowing. The light in the courthouse will click off. Someone will wipe the tables at Murphy's Diner and lock the door without knowing they're part of a story still unfolding. The missing, the found, the accused, the tired, all will fold into the fabric of another night, another set of stars overhead that don't explain anything but remind you that you're still here to wonder. You close your eyes. The sound of the fan is ocean and wind, breath and memory, all at once. Maybe someday we'll know the truth. But for now, sleep well.